How are you today? Jim Bowers back at you with another YouTube video. Today we're talking about FPV, or first person view flying. If you haven't tried it yet and you're thinking about getting into it, we've got a few tips for you on how to get yourself going with FPV and to do it safely and what equipment to buy. So let's take a look at some of the different things that you'll need to get set up for FPV. Now, the first thing you're going to need is your FPV goggles. There's two sets of goggles out there that I would really consider worthwhile, and that's either the Fat Shark goggles or the Sky Zone goggles. They both make a really good quality pair of goggles. These are the Fat Shark Dominator goggles. They're about $259 on Hobby King, or you can also get them at Ready Made RC. If you get the Dominators, you also have to buy the module with it. So you want to get a 5.8 gigahertz module that's going to relay back to your video receiver on the other end. So make sure you get the module with your goggles, or you're just going to have to order it again later. Now, typically what comes with your goggles, if you buy it as a kit, is you're going to get the goggles themselves, the video transmitter, a 250 milliwatt video transmitter most likely, and a flight camera. That is your flight camera, and it's a 700 TVL camera that comes with it. Now, the way we've got this Phantom set up is this has got a GoPro on it so that we can use it for filming high definition video. And then this one is our flight camera. So this is the one we're looking at through our FPV goggles. Now, the other things you're going to need are, number one, you'll need your battery, the battery for your goggles. This is a 7.2 volt battery made by Fat Shark. I think it's 7.2, 7.4 volt 2-cell battery, and this is the battery you're going to need. We did a little experimenting, and we were able to make a 3-cell, the small 3-cell batteries work on these, because these goggles will take up to 14 volts. So that 3-cell battery gave us a much longer lifetime than this smaller 7.4 volt battery. So you might look into that. All you've got to do is go down to Radio Shack and buy that pin connector there. Okay, so battery, and then you need antennas. This is a 5-turn helical antenna put out by multicopterbuilders.com. Richard Shelton over there will set you up with a 5-turn helical or a 3-turn helical. The 5-turn is made for distance. It gets good reception right around you and even 500 feet or so behind you, but where it really is beneficial is way out in front of you. We've flown the Phantoms out to 5,700 feet on a stock DJI radio using this antenna for our FPV goggles. This is the SpiroNet antenna, and you can get the SpiroNet antenna from Hobby King or Ready Made RC. It's also made by Fat Shark. It's an immersion antenna, and then they have this one, and you can also get the Bluebeam Ultra antenna. The Bluebeam, they're all cloverleaf antennas, and that Bluebeam Ultra is supposed to be a pretty darn good antenna, so you might want to look into that one too. Okay, so the other thing you're going to need is your transmitter. That's your FPV transmitter. You can get them in 250 milliwatt or 600 milliwatt transmitters. That's what we've got mounted right here with Velcro. So we've got the 250 milliwatt here with the immersion RC antenna on it. Now, there's all kinds of talk out there as to whether a 600 milliwatt antenna is a lot better than a 250. We've tried them both. The 600 will give you a little bit more range, but just because it's a 600 milliwatt doesn't mean you're going to triple the range. It just won't do it. So a 250 milliwatt or a 600 milliwatt transmitter is going to serve you just fine if you're just getting into FPV flying. So the other things you want to look at, make sure you have a vibration dampener for your camera. You can get those on eBay, and that's just with the little rubber balls on it. If you notice, what I did was I put these zip ties right through the vibration dampener there, and it keeps this from coming apart. So if you hit the ground hard, this isn't all going to come apart on you and you have to put it all back together again. So just loosely put zip ties in there just to hold that together, but don't make them tight because you'll transfer the vibration over. Now, if you're only going to do line of sight flying, let's say like within 500 feet or so, then you don't need OSD or on-screen display. The on-screen display module is what we have mounted over here on our shelf unit. On-screen display is what gives you all of your telemetry information, like a HUD or an HUD. It gives you data like altitude, distance from home, your speed, your mAh consumed or milliamp hours consumed, your battery life, you know, how much battery you've got left before you have to land. And it also gives you, and what's really nice about it is it gives you a direction back to home arrow. With the EasyOSD system, which is what we're using, EasyOSD has a little circle and an arrow in it, and no matter where you're flying, that arrow is always pointed back toward home. So even if I am out over 5,000 feet away and I'm 1,500 feet in the air and everything just looks like a map below me, all I've got to do is follow my arrow and it'll take me back home again. So if you're looking at putting OSD on your bird, consider the EasyOSD system. That's why they call it EasyOSDs, because it's very simple and easy to hook up. I want to give you a couple of quick tips here that aren't really related to FPV, but they're important. If you're using the XT60 connectors for your battery and for hooking up your Phantom, which is what they come stock with, sometimes they're just a bear to unplug and plug back in and all that, and they're really difficult. And when you unplug them, your Phantom goes flying because it's so difficult to get it unplugged. What you can do is take a really tiny Phillips screwdriver and then go in there, or a pair of needle nose, and go in there and pinch those pins together just a little bit, and it'll make connecting your XT connectors a lot easier. The other thing you can do is spray electric cleaner, electronics cleaner on it. It's in a spray aerosol can. Shoot some of that on there and it'll take all the dirt and the muck off of there, so it's a lot easier to plug in and unplug. So just a quick tip. The other quick tip I want to share with you is I'm getting a lot of questions from the guys out there on YouTube about whether or not they should use the string that goes between your prop guards all the way around your Phantom. You know, the string comes with the Phantom stock from the factory, and you know, I suppose they recommend you use it, but we never have used that string, and primarily for one reason. All it's doing is it's giving the Phantom one more way to get hung up in a tree, because it's not really doing anything. These prop guards are already on there nice and stout. They're not going anywhere. So the string, I'm not even exactly sure what the string is for or designed to do. But again, all it's going to do is get you hung up on a tree branch, hopefully not 80 feet off the ground like I did. So, you know, if you want my opinion, just trash the string. It ain't worth putting it on. Okay, now we're getting ready to take off and fly FPV. And there's a few things you want to do before you take off. The first thing you want to do is make sure your battery is completely charged on your goggles. Get a LiPo checker from Hobby King. They're about 10 bucks, and it'll measure the voltage and let you know that you've got sufficient voltage to take off. Everybody should have a battery checker for their Phantom batteries and for these little goggle batteries. So check your voltage, and once you know you've got good voltage and you're ready to go, if you don't, your goggles are going to start beeping. You'll hear a little faint beep beep noise coming out of your goggles. If you do hear that, you better land quickly, because you're going to have about 1 minute before the picture just fades to black. You do not want to be 500 feet away or 1,000 feet away with no picture and no way to get your Phantom back home again. Make sure you've got a completely charged battery for your Phantom. This is the battery I recommend. It's the Zippy 2800 30C 3-cell battery. You can only get it at hobbyking.com. They're about 20 bucks, so it's a very, very affordable battery. But this 2800 will add about 2.5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes to your flight time on a Phantom 1 or a 1.1, okay? So, The first thing we're going to do is turn on the radio. Always turn on your radio. Make sure your switches are in the up position, so you're in the GPS mode, and your IOC switch is in the off position. Make sure your antenna is pointed at about 45 degrees and your light is on constant. Some of them blink when you turn them on, some of them just come on and stay on. So just make sure you have a constant light. Put your battery in your Phantom. We plug in on the outside of the Phantom. Some of you are going to plug your battery in on the inside. Using these zippy batteries, they're just a little tiny bit bigger than a regular stock Phantom battery, so we notch the battery door in order to plug them in on the outside. We've got our radio on, so we can go ahead and plug in. Then the first thing you want to do is not what I just did, and that's move your Phantom around. I turned it around because I want you to see the LED, and that's what you want to watch. Once you plug in your battery, just let your Phantom sit there and get its GPS lock. Let it lock in. If you're moving the Phantom all around while it's trying to get its GPS home lock position, you're just throwing all kinds of weird information at your Phantom, and you could potentially mess something up, and the last thing you want to do is get into a flyaway condition. So let that Phantom just sit there. Wait till you've got 2 sets of green flashing LEDs. The LEDs will flash green 20 times in a row, so it's bip, 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 20 times, and it'll do that twice. Once when it's got its home lock position, and another time when it's got the IOC connected. So once you see 2 sets of 20 flashes, then you're ready to take off, okay? Do not take off if you've got 3 red LEDs flashing or even 2 red LEDs flashing, because that means you haven't marked your home point yet. So now we're getting ready to fly FPV. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we've got our GPS locked on our OSD system. Remember, now you have 2 GPS systems if you're flying FPV. One of them is going to be on the Phantom itself. It's got its own GPS, but also your FPV system, your OSD, has GPS also. So our OSD is trying to lock into all of the satellites, and so that it knows where home is. So when we're looking for that arrow that's telling us where to go back home, it's using GPS to tell us how to get there. So wait for your goggles to say, okay, I've got my GPS lock. It'll come up with a bunch of little satellites in a row, like 7 of them, and when those go out, you've got GPS lock on your OSD system. We're all set because mine have gone out, so we're ready to go. We've got a flashing green light, as you can see down here on the Phantom. So it's ready to go, and we're ready to fly. The thing you want to do is, when you're flying FPV, especially if you're a novice, don't take off with your goggles on. Take off first with your goggles off so that you can get up and away from yourself or away from any obstacles. The first thing you want to do is just take off and hover about 6 or 8 feet off the ground, a good 20 or 30 feet from you. So we'll do that first. So we take our sticks and put them down and into the center, which arms the Phantom. Now we're armed. And then take your throttle and go all the way till 100%. So now our Phantom is hovering, and the reason you want it to sit and hover for 2 reasons. Number 1, you want to put your goggles on and get ready to fly FPV. But number 2, you want to watch the Phantom to see if it's wandering around. If it's wandering all over the place, then you need to do a compass calibration. But if it's staying within 2 or 3 feet of one point, then your compass is fine. So now that we've got a good GPS lock and the Phantom's not roaming all over the place, we're ready to fly FPV. So I'm going to put my goggles on. Here's where you want to do a couple of things. One, if you've never flown FPV before, sit down on a chair or lean up against a car, because flying FPV can be very disorienting. You can be all over the place and your equilibrium plays tricks on you and all kinds of things. Let's take it out for a little spin. All right, so we're under full FPV control now. You can see the Phantom behind me. Again, you want to, have some firm footing or be sitting down in a chair or something like that when you're flying. So just practice your left turns, your right turns. Everything is just like driving a car. You're sitting in the driver's seat, so it's actually much easier to fly FPV than it is to actually fly the Phantom by itself. If you're flying the Phantom by itself and you're coming toward yourself, all your controls are now backwards. Your left is your right and your right is your left. If you're flying FPV, you never have to worry about that because you're just going to fly it, whatever direction you want to go, to your right, to your left, up, down, sideways, whatever. So let's get it in behind us here. You want to watch your battery levels on your FPV OSD system. Hopefully you install OSD on your Phantom, and then so you'll watch your battery voltage down in the lower left hand corner. When that gets down to about 10.7 volts, that's when your Phantom's red LED light is going to start flashing continuously, meaning it's time to land. You can actually push that and get down to about 10.4 volts before the Phantom is going to auto land itself. And that means it's going to go into an auto landing no matter where it's at. Even if you're 1,000 feet away, the Phantom is going to land all by itself. So if you're way out there and you're 1,000 feet away, make sure you allow yourself enough battery power to get back to home. Okay? All right, that's about it for FPV flying. We'll bring it in here a little bit closer, a little closer, a little closer. Maybe I should have prop guards on to be doing this. All right, gang, that's our tips for today on how to fly FPV. And you notice we've got our skids on here. These are the skid extensions that we manufacture for the Phantom exclusively. They stick out 1.5 inches on the front and the back, and when the Phantom comes in for a landing, they tend to want to tip. And with these skids on there, you can't tip it. It doesn't want to tip over. So it's going to save you from chipping your props or breaking a prop guard or even worse sometimes. So landing gear skids, a good modification for your Phantom. The other thing we manufacture is the shelf unit. You notice we've got our OSD mounted on our Phantom, but there's really no place to mount it underneath. All the room is taken up from our FPV transmitter and our vibration dampener. So it was either tear the Phantom apart and try to put it all on the inside, or what we did was we engineered this Lexan shelf unit. So the shelf unit just mounts in between your landing gear and your Phantom, and it gives you a place to install additional electronics like OSD. The shelf unit, the landing gear skids, and the third thing is risers. We make a 3/4 inch riser that gets your camera another 3/4 of an inch off the ground. If you've got a gimbal on your Phantom, then your camera is really close to the ground. And if you land anywhere near rocks or anything, you could risk hitting that when you come in for a landing, especially a hard landing. So the risers will get you up off the ground even further. They're made from Lexan and designed exclusively for the Phantom. Send us 40 bucks and we'll send you all three: the skids, the risers, and the shelf unit. Just shoot me an email to jimbowers@foothill.net and I'll set you up with PayPal. We'll get them right off to you. Hey, that's gonna do it for this edition, gang. I hope you picked up a few tips and tricks on FPV flying your Phantom. If you've got any questions or you're just not quite sure about something, leave me a comment down below here, and please do like my videos because it helps me move up in the rankings. I'm Jim Bowers. We'll see you on another YouTube video. Have a great day.